those people are thinking the exact same thing about us, that we're the terrorists and we're over there in their country. And they probably have, it's like, yeah, they're right, you know. But it's war, and war's nasty, and lives get taken. And at the end of the day, my goal was to make sure my teammates made it home to their families, and I made it home to my family. And if I have to kill you, then I have to kill you. It was funny. I had this like this liberal. Oh, it was like the Apple podcast guy I was telling you about.
Yeah.
You know, he was asking me all sorts of questions and couldn't, you know, and I was like, dude, it's so funny to listen to you try and break down, like, philosophize war and this and that. I'm like, it's so simple. It's a game. And I'm like, you're in the game. It's how, like, we're over there, and if you pick up a gun, you just entered the game. And I don't care what age, gender, skin color, like, there's only one way out of the game, and that's death. And I was like, I'm playing the same game as you. So that's it. And, you know, you really can't. I think people think you can sit there and, oh, well, let's reason and try and, like, before I shoot this person, maybe I should go through his background and be like, maybe he really didn't want to be ISIS, and maybe he was forcing. There's no time for any of it.
Period.
Yeah, it's like, no, dude, it's on, and it's you or me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Into that.
That's a great answer.
Yep.
What was your most memorable deployment?
Probably my second one with the teams. We went to Kandahar.
The one you were talking about.
Yeah, my second deployment. Yep. So we went and did disruption ops there. I mean, that is my most memorable. My first two platoons are actually my most memorable, just because the guys that I was with. I mean, I couldn't have been more blessed to be with just, like, the most professional, like, but savage warriors that, you know, from my peers to the older guys. It was just a awesome environment to be in. Everybody was on the same page. We were very tight. So that it just made those deployments that much more, memorable. But I got so much experience from that. And then, you know, Afghanistan at that time was hot and heavy. So we were putting in the work, going out, you know, all the time. And yeah, it just, I had, you know, a lot of good experiences on that deployment, a lot of close calls.
Can you give an example?
Well, let's see. You know, I put it in my book that I fell down a well and almost died. That was
You did.
Yeah. So we were,
and we'll have the link to your book in description, Man
Okay.
in the Arena, so everyone can go get that there. But go ahead.
Yeah. So that one, we were patrolling into a target, and we had passed this well. So there's, you know, Afghanistan, there's wells everywhere, but this one was pretty massive. It was like 8 feet across, you know, big hole. And so we saw it, and we threw a IR chem light by it so everybody could see it and walk around. I was the breacher, so they wanted to blow down a wall. I ran up, pulled the wall charges out of my bag, started setting them up, and then they decided not to do it. They were like, hey, we found another way in, so let's not go explosive. So it was like, all right. And I pulled the breaches down, put my ruck back on. Now I'm in the back of the patrol, catching up. And what happened was one of the Afghanis that we were with had accidentally kicked the IR chem light down the well. So there was no loom that night. What loom is when you're under night vision, right? If the moon's not out, you really can't see too great. I mean, it's still dark. So I could not. I was walking, and I remember thinking, I'm like, dude, where is that hole? And then I just fell down. It was like a 25-foot drop.
Oh, man.
But luckily, there was water at the bottom, a good 8 feet of water.
Did you get hurt?
I bashed my head on the way down. I banged the knee.
Good.
But really, I was down there for probably 45 minutes treading water. They couldn't get me out. I think it was November, so it was freezing out. So they eventually, and actually an Afghan is the one who, one of the Afghan guys, they found a tunnel that went down. It was a little opening above me. So he had burrowed himself down there, and then I ended up getting out through that tunnel. One of my teammates came down and ended up pulling me out, but I was hyped out, completely just, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But
Nick, actually, his buddy Pemberton had the same story at a similar time. I think that was in Iraq, though, right? Yeah. They moved to Iraq at that point, but he fell down like a manhole like that at night. His was like 85 feet, and thank God there was water at the bottom.
Really?
And yeah, he was treading water. He like broke his leg and shit. But
yeah,
it's crazy that he was saying, yeah, there's a lot of this stuff over
yeah.
there.
I think a Green Beret had died a week prior, falling down a well. There was no water, so I mean, they're all over the place there. But yeah, that was a memorable moment. We got it on video. So like when I was treading water, so I had my rucksack on. I was a medic, so I had all my medical gear. I was a breacher, so I had wall charges. I had the 50 cal sniper rifle broken down, and then I had my M4 slung. And so when I was treading water, I was pretty much like going underneath, coming back up, and so I ended up dropping my M4. I was like, the thing was, and I just let it go. So when they pulled me out,
It's like Rose letting Jack go.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They could have both made it, by the way.
Oh, dude, that bitch had so much room on that
easily.
thing.
That's fucked up.
Rose is selfish.
She's a Catholic.
Yeah.
She's not a Christian.
But yeah, we ended up we went to the target anyways, got in a little firefight, and then...
You got in a firefight right after that?
Yeah.
So you've been down in a well, treading water for 45 minutes.
Polypro too, like, so they had stripped me naked and put on Polypro on me to warm me up.
Yeah.
And so I'm at this compound, and yeah, we started, taking incoming fire, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I grabbed I had the 50 cal still, so I cleaned it and I like got it back up and joined the fun. But then my OIC was like, hey, you need to go back. We need to retrieve that rifle. We can't leave it there. And
yeah, they really changed that opinion in the next 11 years, apparently.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So everything.
So I had to patrol back. Well, he was like, hey, we're going to send somebody to go get it. And I was like, no, that's my rifle. I'm the one who fell. I'm going to go back. So I went back.
You're going to jump into the well.
So yeah, that's on video. My buddy was filming it. I jumped back in. I found it.
Do we have that video? Is that public?
I don't know if that's public. I can
Damn it.
see if I can send it to you. The funny part of that, though, is I had lost my wedding ring. So I had, as I'm going down and digging down, I found my gun that came up and my wedding ring was gone, which I don't know why I was wearing it in the first place on and off. But yeah, my wife, she doesn't let me live that down.
Oh, that's terrible.
Got the rifle, but didn't get the weapon.
Yeah. So she's like, I see what's more important.
We'll get another one. That's hilarious. It's wild. We've just ironically had several guys in here who were in Afghanistan, particularly during those years, like 2008 to like 2012.
It was nasty.
And oh my God, the shit that was going down.
It was nasty. Like that deployment, we would, we were told we had to go to every ramp ceremony, right? Which is, they're like, hey, you're going to pay respects. And we were all on board with it. But what ended up happening is we're going to ramp ceremonies every night. So you were just watching these caskets get loaded on. And then eventually, I think it was like, at some point, man, this is sort of like demoralizing.
Yeah, definitely.
It's having an effect on everybody. But that's just, I mean, that's how bad it was during that time. I think we were there during one of the deadliest years.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, and that's all those poor, conventional Army, Marines. I mean, they were just getting worked, and it was hard to watch.
Was that 2010 you said, or
9?
Oh,
08, 09.
Are you still SEAL Team 1 at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because you ended up SEAL Team 7, right?
Yep.
I didn't make that up.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's after I became a BUDS instructor, and then went to SEAL Team 7 after that.
Yeah. I guess like along the early deployments, like, to become an instructor and things like that, like you have to have serious leadership qualities, and I would assume, right?
Not specifically. I think it's more. I mean, obviously they want, especially in first phase, I think they want a person that holds himself to the SEAL standard, looks the part, because you have to think about it. That's the first thing a student sees when he comes to BUDS, right? Is like, holy shit, these are the Navy SEALs that are putting me through it. So you don't want some like half-assed dude that's like, whatever. You want a guy that's like, hey, I'm holding the standard. You better, in order to get past first phase, you will meet these standards, and I'm doing everything with you, right?
Were you more hyped up than you were with like Tommy G on the beach when you were disappointed in him?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Which, by the way, shout out to our mutual friend.
Yeah, Tommy, he's the
hooking
man,
us
dude.
up.
Yeah,
That was an awesome documentary.
he did
You guys
fantastic
did.
job.
What did Tommy say? What was his quote? Any good quotes when he was getting smoked?
Oh, by Eddie?
Yeah.
No, I think he just thought like he'd be able to do it easily. He's like, I'm a wrestler. I could get to this.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, he
No,
found out in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I love you're like, you don't have enough sand on you. Let me spray that on you. Sprinkle it. I'm like, there's no way he was this low key during training.
Actually, I mean, there's not a lot of yelling. You don't have to yell at buds.
You don't feel like a big yeller.
No, I'm what did they call me? I got a plaque and a sweet tomahawk thing they made me, but it was oh dude, it'll come to me. But yeah, I was more silent, but the silent hammer. So
Right.
I'd come in and be like, but the thing is
The silent.
I would do everything with them, like. If I could, I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna do the 4 mile time run with you guys. I'm gonna do the O course with you. I did 2 mile ocean swims with them, and that was more just to like lead by example. Like, dude, this doesn't end once you make it through buds. This is a lifestyle. Like, you have to perform all the time, and and then you do have some instructors that let themselves go and they're sort of sloppy and they don't want anything to do. Like, I'm not gonna go PT them, but I wasn't like I was pretty. Intense.
Yeah, you were about that.
Yeah, I was about So, which I was, I have a lot of guys that I put through who will call me and be like, dude, thank you.
That's what they say in here.
Yeah, and that means more to me than anything. I mean, that means more to me than any deployment I went on. That's awesome. It's like I had a positive effect, on these guys. So,
what made you want to do that?
I didn't. I think it was. They were like, hey, you need to take a break. Or like, so once you do a bunch of rotations, they're like, hey, you can't just keep doing them. You have to, they call it giving back to the team. So like you have to go somewhere to either train, be at TradeEt where you put, grade platoons as they come through. You go to first. There's a bunch of options to go to. And they knew, they're like, dude, you're going to first base. Like you're, pretty in shape and you're all about it. So I went there kicking and screaming. I wanted to do another platoon. I just wanted to keep going. But the reality is, and my wife was like, yes. Like,
Time to settle down a little bit.
Yeah. Like I want, it'd be cool to you be home for a couple years. Little did she know though, and little did I know that was probably one of the hardest I've worked.
Really?
Yeah. Because at the time we were undermanned. And they were also trying to produce more SEALs. The directive came out from Obama that he wanted 500 more SEALs, which is ridiculous. But so they upped the class sizes, and then they also upped the classes. So it was 7 classes a year. So we called it 7, 7, and 7. So you would do 7 weeks of first phase, end on a Friday, start a new class on a Monday.
Did they lighten the requirements? Meaning, like, if you had to score X on this kind of thing, well, now it's X -1 because they're trying to take more?
No. So they were trying to. When we were there, they were always trying to, like, it seemed like find little ways to lower the standards or, like, cut corners. But here's the thing.
Not under Eddie Gallagher.
Not when you have team guys running the show, being instructors. They can sit there, hey, you can't do this and that. It's like, no, we're going to make sure they get full Benny, while they're here and do it the way that we've been doing it. So, yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is they up the class sizes. So when and I brought this up in another podcast. So, like, I guess they're like, oh, how do you get these guys in the teams that don't really, like, belong there? And you always have your bottom 2%, 1%, right? But usually it's like 1 or 2 guys might make it through that really don't belong, and then they're sort of taken care of when they get to a team if they show their ass, right? But when you up the class sizes like that, you'll now have maybe 3 to 5 guys that don't belong, and then you go ahead and have 7 classes a year. That's 35 guys that don't belong in the teams that are now spread amongst the teams, and you do that for 2-3 years, and the teams aren't that big, so that does have an effect. But they really didn't like lower the standards from like on paper,
right?
It's still the same, and it was I was glad it was a good experience. I'm glad at the end of the day I went there kicking and screaming, but then I'm glad I did it. It was probably one of the most beneficial times for me is like just as becoming a more experienced leader, just experienced team guy, being an instructor.
But this was the hardest you ever worked to that point.
I mean, I would say that like being at home, I was never home. I would get up 4 a.m. I wouldn't get home till 6, 7 at night. And then you work hell weeks, and that is, you're pretty much not home. I always had the midnight to 8 in the morning shift, so you're on a totally different schedule. So yeah, it was a dick dragger, but I had, again, awesome guys that I was working with. So everybody sort of like, we banded together and we're like, we're gonna, gut this out, and everybody's gonna do their part.
Was Dan Corbett a trainer while you were a trainer too?
No, Dan was he came. I think he was at SQT teaching assaults, because he came back from Red Squadron, and then he was there for a little bit.
Right.
Because that's why I ended up going to SQT assaults as well. I screened for Dev Group. I went over to Green Team. I got dropped halfway through, came back.
Wait, what's Green Team?
It's the screening process to get into development group.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So I had screened, and that's really when I went to Team 7. So I had screened out of first phase, made it about halfway, got dropped. They were like, hey, told me, they're like, you can come back. Come back whenever next year.
Why'd they drop you?
Bro, I'm not.
That's kind of shocking.
It's I mean, believe me. Well, first off, I'm not anything special. I'm just.
That's what they all say.
I was lucky to be where I was among the men that I was with. But Green Team is a very subjective, and they were like, hey, come back next year. So I left, and I screened again, and they were like, yep, you can come back, but you have to wait a year because we can't just have you come back right away. And they're like, just stay in a training command. And I was like, no. So I found the next platoon that was going to Afghanistan, which was at Team 7, and I joined them and just went from there.
What year is that now?
This had to be 2011.
Okay. So there was a very old podcast, I think from 2014, that Joe Rogan did. I want to say it was the first one he did with that CIA guy, Mike Baker.
Oh, yeah, I love that dude.
Yeah, that guy's great. But it was crazy. I had never listened to it. And then maybe a couple years ago, I think it was like right after the Afghanistan stuff, I listened to it. And again, this is back in like 2014. This guy laid out play-by-play to a T, as if he had a crystal fucking ball, down to like the image, almost like, I think he might have even used the word, you're going to have a fucking helicopter like the one over Saigon. Like down to the imagery of how Afghanistan would fall, which tells me that, he's not the only guy that could see that coming.
Yep.
You could see it coming too. I would imagine when from 08 to 12 or 13, when you go back, it's even worse. Like, what were you guys thinking at that point? Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Oh, yeah. That was... So that we were doing the commando mission. So that's when we were taking, we would take freaking 80 Afghan commandos and go hit a target, and there'd only be like 4 of us with them. So it'd be like, so everything was like sort of pushed to be Afghan led, right? It was like the Afghans are now fighting for themselves, but we're there going on ops, advising them. And the reality part of it is these guys ain't doing shit. I mean, there's some good ones, that were decent, but the reality is we were still taking it to the enemy. I mean, that was a decent deployment, but I definitely saw the differences when I went back there. Like, just to give you an example, we got there the first week we were there. We went and did an operation. We were going to an old, so at this point we had turned over all the Village Stability Operation sites back to the Afghans. We're like, these are yours now, go do good things. So our job was to go back and assess if they were actually doing good things, if like, hey, are they using these VSO sites? And as you can guess, they were all shitholes.
Right.
They had stolen taken everything out, sold everything. I mean, I'm talking millions of dollars just wasted. And during our first one, we were assessing this old VSO site, and the Taliban had actually, taken it back over. And I watched, it was like at 1 or 2 in the morning, the B1 was above us, and we were talking to him. And one of the Taliban in the village shot a RPG up at the AC-130. And I was like, what the like this idiot. God. But that's hostile intent, dude. Yeah. See ya. So I ended up waiting. I saw him go back into the building. I waited till morning. I was watching. He came out. He had a PKM. He started making his way. And the B1 was talking me onto him like, yep, there he is. So I ended up blasting. I shot him. And another dude came up to grab his gun to run. I shot him. I get back from that op, and I am put under investigation right off the bat. They're like, you're not here to like, you're here to assess to make sure they're doing the right thing, but you aren't, like. And I told him, I was like, he shot. It's the B1 will tell you all day. He shot at them, and I ended up being cleared. I mean, yeah, but it was still, just the fact that I was then pulled out for a week. Told I was like, you're under investigation, like this and this, we don't know. And I'm like, what are we doing here? And those are some of the changes that I saw. Also, the fact that we were paying off all these warlords. I mean, dude, it was so corrupt and just, we're paying these warlords to keep IEDs off the main roads, but then these warlords are also giving back to the Taliban. Like, it was just one big circle jerk. And that's when, I mean, I knew before then though. It was like, this is the process of like where we're going to.
It's going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like the Sons of Iraq funds and all the bullshit there. Yeah. Just wide open to just corruption 101, even amongst our own soldiers. I mean, holy shit. We had a few cases in the Bureau where dudes just went bad. They tried, I mean, you got shitloads of cash sitting on top of a safe unsecured. In like a forward base, right?
Didn't you do You went over there to do investigations, right?
And we actually had a kid that sent money back the first time. He sent 20 grand back via the postal service, and then he waited like 2 weeks, and he's like, "Fuck, nobody said anything. It's still sitting at my door." So then he just started sending as much as he could.
Oh my!
And ultimately, he got caught. He's a West Point kid, and ultimately got caught. The sad part of that whole story is his battalion commander killed himself. Because he said it was my responsibility. Now we all know other mental issues, obviously, but that's a sad thing. And the only way we got this kid to talk was because he's a Asian American family, and so we just served search warrants on the accounts that belonged to his parents and his aunts and uncles. Mm-hmm. And once that happened, he gave us everything. But to the tune of like $2.5 million, he sent back.
Damn!
In 7 months. I mean, that's a
Wild West out
that's
there.
just one story.
And nobody found it. Like, nobody bothered to say, what's going on? So-and-so is, he's always around the safe. You know what I mean? Like, there's being around the flag, but then there's being around the safe.
He just bought a Bugatti, man. What's going on?
Exactly. Yeah, he put like in the other thing, like his nieces and nephews had the best electronic equipment and their rooms were redone. I'm like, oh my God.
And
you wanted to get caught.
Also, I just put this together. Didn't Johnny Mac, wasn't that in Afghanistan too?
That was in Afghanistan.
Your buddy, that was like 2011, same time period.
2010, May 18, 2010. He was the guy, he was a colonel. He was killed, I think it was at the time, it was the highest ranking officer to be killed over there. He got hit by a suicide bomber. Coming out of, basically it was a 2-week mission. They were in transition team, the brigade battle group. They were coming over. I think the 82nd was, no. 101st was leaving, 10th Mountain was coming in. And he, basically got off the aircraft, got into an armored bus, 17 of them, and he got hit within like 10 minutes. Now, the irony of this, the time Secretary of the Army was John McHugh. So these idiots thought they were killing the Secretary of the Army, and my buddy had the same name in 06.
Oh,
my childhood friend, man. Like, we grew up together. And then all of a sudden, I get a phone call because his son was deployed at the same time. I get a phone call, and it's his brother, and he's like, hey, John's dead. And I'm like, oh, what are John and Connie going to do? Because, Michael was over there. It was him. So I was 46 years old, man. Just hit. Like, it was, and no one ever really got to, it was just like, nobody really ever
got to the, like, why it happened. Or
just let it go, man. They just let it go.
I feel like, and that's one memory I have, too, of one of my deployments, like, just working with the conventional Army. We went, it was Fob Wilson. They were just getting worked. And we got told, like, hey, these guys are like getting smoked every time they go outside their fob. So we were like, hey, yeah, we'll come over. We'll go help assist and take care of the problem. And so they're like, yes. So we flew out there. And I remember landing at that fob and seeing these Army kids, man, like we got off the plane, and, it was my SEAL platoon, and they came walking up to us, and these kids were crying. Like, are you here? They're like, are you here to help us? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, please. Like, all of them just lost friends within the past week, and it was like a normal thing. But then I would watch the leadership just send these kids out, like, with no like contingencies, plans. It was like, nope, you're just going to go drive down that road. And I'm like, dude, who is like running the show here? Yeah. But at the end of it, we stayed there for about 3 weeks, and we mopped up. Yeah. We would go out every night and just tear the place up as best we could.
That. But again, you're like making these little dents, but the overall strategy is not there. So it's like you know what I mean? It's like, great, you're doing your mission, but that's one key to the entire cog here. And it's like, you know.
Eddie, what you talked about, I'm so interested in this. You talked about your first couple of platoons, right? And what was the difference between that leadership? And we touched on it a little bit, you know what I mean? Like being around, actually taking the person by person, that's what you're doing it for, versus like later on, like stuff like that. Like you see a conventional Army unit that obviously there can't be any leadership at all because these kids are just getting sent out and like, hey, kill them, next.
They're in tears. Yeah.
I mean, what would you say if you could, a couple of things or one thing that really stands out to you as you look back on it or during the time that made the difference leadership wise?
That my leaders did everything that we did.
There you go, man.
They were out with us. That. So like my platoon chief and then my OIC, they weren't sitting back and sending us out. Everybody was going out together. And that's, as the war progressed on, I saw more and more like officers would sort of, no, I'm going to stay in the jock and watch from ISR. And then, I'll make the plans from here, which is whatever. You want to do that, that's great, but then you cannot armchair quarterback from the jock either. And that's one big thing I saw with the Army unit. I have one distinct memory of patrolling out with them, and there was only like me and 2 other SEALs in their patrol. We just sort of embedded in there, and we kept stopping. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I mean, stopping every 5 minutes. And then I would watch the junior officer that was in the patrol walk up and down and be like, you need to get some separation. And so I finally pulled him aside halfway through. I'm like, what are you doing? What is going on? He's like, oh, well, the OIC is back at the jock, and he's watching. They had those big cameras in the sky.
Yeah.
He's watching and, like, critiquing the way the patrol is on the way to target. And I finally told him, I was like, shut that comms off. I'm like, stop talking to him. I'm like, you're in charge, dude. You fucking get us there.
Yep.
And then he was like, oh, all right, But that's the kind of goofiness you're like, dude, how is this even working like this?
Yeah.
You know what's ironic about this? So I guess General McChrystal had the whole thing go down in like 09 or 10, and then he was out, right?
Yeah.
So I believe it was him, but I remember in my old career, my boss had a chance to go to like one of these private conferences where I'm pretty sure it was McChrystal talking. Yeah, Larry was there. And he was blown away because the whole point of the talk was about like delegation and leadership. And he was citing the example of right when they went into Afghanistan in 01 or 02, the military had been so like top heavy with like having to go all the way down the chain of command just to take a shit or, things like that. And they gave, again, takes an attack for it to happen, but they then compartmentalized it and empowered different little sections to make their own decisions. And it seems like they just went completely backwards on that within a 10-year period afterwards after having initially success.
Yep. And that comes back to what we talked about, you brought up in the beginning, is kowtowing to the media, kowtowing to like, oh, well, look what they're doing here. So then the leadership, we need to protect the institution. So now we're going to then tighten it back up. Now none of you guys can make a decision unless I say so.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, you said you could kind of see the chips falling in the wrong direction in Afghanistan for a long time, but when it finally did go down in a horrible ball of heat in 2021, what was going through your head?
I didn't think it would affect me as bad as it did. Like, I came down, I watched, obviously, whatever the whole world watched, which was these Afghans holding onto the plane, falling off. And I literally, like, I started tearing up. But I think it was just more like, you're just filled with like, what the fuck? Like, why is this happening like this? Like, who made this plan? So yeah, I mean, it was devastating to watch, and then followed by Abbey Gate, where we lost those 13, service members. I think the hardest thing about that, all of that, obviously was a disaster, but to watch like we talked about earlier, the officers take no accountability, to literally call it a victory, to not acknowledge the 13 service members that were lost. That was more of a hard pill to swallow, because it's like, dude, what kind of example are you setting? Like you're setting the precedent right now. So basically, nobody's accountable for anything, unless if you're part of the elitist, whatever officer corps that we can do. It's rules for thee, but not for me. And then you have the young privates who are getting screwed over for losing a weapon, and their whole career's ruined. But then you have, these leaders planning an operation. It's a total failure. Lives are lost, and they're just like, "Yep, move on." That's where I really had, and you've always known that in some capacity, but just to watch it in front of the country, like happen in front of the country like that, it literally was like, dude, this is bad.
See, I can't fathom it in your position because you were there. You were there fighting it and everything. But like, I can imagine how much worse it must feel, because I feel something when I see that. One of my first
Everybody should.
Yeah, one of my first memories that's like a vivid, like, whoa, I remember every second of that day when I was really little was 9/11. We knew people who died in those towers and whatever. And so this was my first, like, introduction to, like, oh, the world's like a kind of fucked up place sometimes, and shit goes down, and war's a real thing. And to see, like, over the span of a generation, that semicircle form, that then goes, like, full circle right to where it was, it makes you feel a certain type of way. And to your point, when you see guys like Sean's friend, Tyler Vargas Andrews, who survived that Abbey Gate bombing and, now has, he's missing 2 limbs.
Triple amputee, I think.
Right.
Or is it 2?
Double. I think it's either way. Like, inspirational guy, to say the least. But, like, when you see his story, like, get ignored by so many people, and they won't even talk about it and cover it in the quote unquote mainstream media and stuff, and doesn't get the recognition from the administration, where the buck stops with them and how this happened. That's infuriating to me.
It is. And I think that's the main element that is piss poor leadership, man. It's they don't deserve to be in those leadership positions. They did not earn it. They didn't earn it by merit. They earned it by being yes men. And when you get to the top like that by being a yes man and just, saying what you think everybody wants to hear and not actually doing the job, and then you're in charge of making decisions like the Afghan withdrawal, and it's a complete failure, it's like, yeah, well, this is what you get. You know? And
absolutely.
There needs to be, I don't know what the answer is. I brought up my solution, or I know it's super extreme, but I was like, dude, if Trump gets in office, it's like every 05 and above, you're gone. You are gone. And I'm sure there's some good ones in there, but it's like an example needs to be made. Like, we have gone down a path that is just tainted, and if we keep allowing this it's never going to go away unless an example is made.
You need a little reset.
Yes, and then they need to go to West Point, to Annapolis, to all these institutions, and look at the curriculum that they're putting out. What are they teaching these young officers in these schools, like, about leadership? And if it's the wrong thing, it needs to be addressed and it needs to be fixed.
I agree with that, man. I think about it a lot. And there's great things going on that are different than when I went through there, but there's also things that we're missing. And it's simple things, like mandatory dinner, or just, like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's where it starts. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's where you kind of start, what you were talking about on the side of being close to your people, being around your people, being around the flag, doing everything that they do, and not just saying, well, I did it once when I was a junior. I did it once when I was a sophomore. I did it once when I was a lieutenant. I don't have to do it anymore because I'm a field grade officer now. Those things are missing. Yeah. And it's very clear that they're missing. And, you could see the results. The results are evident. And everything is on here now. So, everything cops, it doesn't matter if it's cops, first responders, guys like you, guys like me, it's out there.
Yeah.
So if you stay close to that flag and you lead by example, and you truly believe in what you're doing, because most people I think still believe in protecting the country, but they have different ways of believing that.
Yes.
Some of them are beneficial, right? They're self-serving. That's the people we got to fucking get rid of.
Yeah.
Because that is not working. It's just not.
And doesn't, and that really doesn't work in any environment.
It doesn't.
It's like, if it's all about you, me, it's like, then you're going to be a problem.
Yep.
Eventually.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got to run to the bathroom real quick, but when we come back, let's get to Mosul and what happened there.
Sounds
and
good.
Go through the whole case. Be right back. All right, we're back. So obviously we've been kind of building up to this all day. This is the core of what became your story.
Yeah.
But before we get to actually what happened that then caused this whole case, what was the whole situation where you even got called in to be the chief of this specific platoon for Team 7? How did that work?
Yeah, so I was already at 7. I did a couple rotations, and so I was actually planning on going and screening again to try to go to Dev Group. That was like my goal. And I got offered a platoon chief. I had just picked up chief, and the master chief's like, hey, I want you to stay at 7, and I want you to take over this platoon. So I had called my friends that were already at Dev Group. I was like, hey, this is the predicament I'm in. What do you guys think? And they're like, dude, take the platoon chief spot. Like, don't worry about coming over here. And so I was like, all right, and honestly, my family wasn't really keen on. My wife's not really keen on moving to the East Coast. I already knew that. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take the platoon chief spot. So yeah, I was in Charlie platoon, and so he's like, hey, I'm going to send you over to Alpha. Alpha, that last rotation did not do very well.
The one before you.
Yes, the one before I took over. So like I talked about earlier, when a platoon goes through workup, they get graded on everything, and they just did not. They didn't have very good high remarks. I think their leadership in the platoon had problems. So he was like, listen, you're going to go take over that platoon, straighten it up. And I was like, okay, and I didn't know anybody in that platoon. I just didn't know most of it. I knew one guy. And so I went over there. I ended up taking 2 individuals from my prior platoon with me. I was like, you 2 are coming with me.
They let you do that? Like, you can decide to do that?
You can try. It's every platoon chief, when he takes over, like when it's his turn, he tries to build the best platoon. Like, he's like, and who's who, everybody. Team
America, if you will.
Yeah, reputations are everything in the team. So you're like, okay, I know this guy's my pipe hitter. I want this guy. But that's really unfair to do. You need to spread the wealth and experience. So I was, lucky enough to grab 2 guys from my platoon, my prior platoon, brought them over there. And yeah, I checked into that. Not checked in. I was already at 7, but went over to Alpha, and from the get-go, I was like, hey, we're clean slate. I don't care what happened last go. I'm not no judgment, but we are going to train, and we are going to be the best platoon at this team. That is my goal. And the reason you want to do that is because then you get to pick where you get to go on deployment. Right. And I was like, I want to go, obviously, to combat and to the best spot. So, and everybody was on board. They were. Like, oh, yeah. Yeah, they were like, yep. So we, started off the platoon. So when you come back from a deployment, you go right into a phase called professional development. And that is where the guys get sent off to schools. So it doesn't, to go get their qualifications. So sniper, breacher, JTAC, whatever. If you're missing quals in that platoon, like, hey, we only have 2 snipers, but we want 4, I'm sending 2 guys to sniper school. Mm-hmm. If we need a JTAC, that's the time to do it. It's during professional development phase. So during that phase, usually the whole platoon is not together because everyone's, at different schools. But I just I was like, hey, the guys that are back, we are going to train every day. So we would go do all the basics, patrolling, post assault procedures, shooting, CQC. And I think for when I say older guys, they were, 3rd platooners. They were like, not with, they're like, why are we doing this? And to be fair, we were the only platoon really out there doing it. I think there was this mindset of, oh, we'll just wait till we get to workup to do all that stuff. Well, workup is where you're getting graded, right? So it's like if you're not putting in the work beforehand, you should be shining during workup. You should show up and they should be like, holy shit, this platoon is put together, right? Which is what my goal was. So I think there was and it wasn't really like vocalized too much. I could just tell by some of the body posture, like some of the faces, when we're out there patrolling on the beach again. And, it is corny. Like we wouldn't even have weapons. It was just like, hey, we're going to work on just formations and how to, get into the different formations, and everybody knows where they're at. But either way, I mean, we did all that, and then went into workup, and workup went fantastic. We got high remarks from every block that we went through.
Are you still, I mean, you mentioned the body language and stuff, but do you still feel like your relationship with the guys is fine? Like there's nothing,
everything seemed to be going fine. I definitely think there was Dylan DeLay, who was one of the guys. He from the get-go did not like me, but he was a very timid, meek type of individual. I just don't, my personality and his just didn't jive.
Wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. Which was fine. I didn't really think too highly, like too much of him, but at the same time, I wasn't like holding a personal grudge. I was like, this dude's in my platoon, whatever. Like, we'll keep going. And, but yeah, everything during workup was good to go. Really no incidents. We did just a great job. And then we got our pick going to Missoula. We were told that we were tasked with like, hey, this is where you guys are going to go on deployment. So then we did sit, which is where I talked about earlier, where we go do our individual, like our as a platoon, which is where I actually found where I live now. We went down there to train for 2 weeks.
Oh, you did that in Florida?
Yeah.
Wow.
So usually like there's these...
So your wife made it to the East Coast?
Yeah. Eventually, yeah. Down south, though. Yeah.
Yeah, Florida's not a different Virginia country.
Beach. Yeah.
I'd take a passport there.
Yeah, so we went there, did our 2 weeks there, and then even then during that 2 weeks, there was definitely some like gripes happening, but it was more focused on my OIC. They were like complaining about him, which me and him were pretty tight. When it comes to like a platoon chief and OIC relationship, it was good.
Does that mean officer in charge?
Yes, officer in charge. And usually, from what I've seen, like those relationships aren't that great, right?
Why is that?
It just depends on personality. So like you could have an officer come in. So usually the platoon chief is the most experienced one, right? So, just take me, for example, I was at that point in 18 years. I was on my 9th deployment. My platoon chief, that was his second. So there's the level of experience is different, but he is overall in charge on paper. Like he's the one running the show. So you can have a good OIC will come in and be like, hey, you have the experience. I'm here to back you. I'm looking up and out. I'm making sure I'm going to get us work, but also protect us. But when it comes to tactics and like how we're going to plan operations, that's usually on the platoon chief, right? Because he has the experience. A lot of the times, not a lot, sometimes you'll have an officer come in and be like, nope, I'm doing everything.
Right.
You have to check with me before you make decisions. And that's where the relationship can sour. And there's, personality and everything involved in that.
But yours wasn't like that.
No, we were rocking and rolling. He came in with that attitude. He's like, dude, you're in charge of the tactics and this and that. And then I'm looking up and out, but I'm here to support you. And then the same way I was like, I'm going to support you. So it wasn't, during sit, they started griping about the OIC. But it wasn't like anything too crazy. It was just something I noticed,
Is there anything now, I mean, hindsight's like, more than 2020, but is there anything you would have changed up from what you did to, basically flip this team's performance around? Like the leadership tactics you used during that time period?
No. Yeah. No. I don't, not during workup or during sit. During deployment, yes.
Okay.
There's a couple things on deployment that, I would have changed a little bit. I mean, and that's the thing. Like leadership is not. I think there's some people that get out of the military and they sell leadership as this like this is the way it is and this is how you will become an effective leader. Leadership, you are going to mess up. I think a big thing of being a good leader is being humble enough and being vulnerable enough to be like, hey, and I said that to my platoon a couple times when we went into MAROPS, maritime operations and diving. I was like, dude, this is not my strong suit. I've been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Like maritime and diving was not on the, we did it, but it wasn't like focused on. So I told them, I was like, I'm going to need some of your guys' help during these blocks to actually, succeed and be the best. And so, I think that paid dividends because they were like, and I actually put some of them in charge and some stuff. I'm like, hey, you're going to run this. I was really running it, but to give them the confidence.
Yeah. Feel like they're in charge.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So yeah, when we got on deployment, that's when things shifted really quickly.
How so?
We got there and we hit the ground running.
Maybe a little context for people, just what's going on at the time in Iraq.
Okay,
and Mosul,
obviously ISIS had control of Mosul, and there was a SEAL platoon that was already there, which my best friend was the platoon chief of. They had pushed through the east side of Mosul, and that's Trump took office when they were on their deployment. I think it was like the last 2 months of their deployment when Trump took office, and that's when they started being able to push. They were like, hey, you're going to push through the eastern side of Mosul, which was pretty rural. And then you had the western side, which was completely urban. Just city after city, like it was just packed. Yeah. So by the time we got there, they had cleared the eastern side, and we were being tasked with doing the western. And I remember my best friend, we had about 2 days of, we call it turnover. So when you show up, you do like a little turnover with the platoon that's there. I usually get what's working for them. Like, hey, what have you been doing that works? What hasn't been working? So you can start implementing those, if that's what you want to do.
Just 2 days.
Well, yeah. Usually you show up a week in advance or 2 weeks in advance, and you'll do some turnover operations where you'll go out with that platoon. But we did not do that. It was literally because the reason we didn't do it is because we were given a different partner force. So they were working with the the Kurds.
Peshmerga.
Yes. And so they had been working with them. I don't know why I blanked on that.
It's all good.
And then when we showed up, they're like, hey, you guys aren't going to be working with them. You're going to be working with ERD, Emergency Response Division, which is a bunch of Iraqis.
That's not as good.
Well, from what I was told, the Peshmerga were awesome to work with.
Yeah.
Just like on board with doing everything. This group was not vetted. They had a heavy Iranian influence. So we were told like, hey, you need to keep eyes in the back of your head because some of these guys could smoke you if they wanted to. So it was definitely like, all right, this is going to be a little complicated. We were in this mansion when we showed up, which is where the team was staying. Because we were clearing the western side, we ended up having to move into Mosul and stage out of there. And we fell under the Marine Corps. We fell under MARSOC because they had operational control. So my platoon and one other SEAL platoon fell under a MARSOC command, which was awesome. I could not say better things about them and the way they operate. But they pretty much took over a couple houses right outside of western Mosul. And that's where we lived. It was a shithole. It was like, but it was like everything that nothing I had done before. I was like, this is what I expected. I think there was out of the 4 platoons that were there, plus the head shed and all the administrative, we had 2 porta-johns, no showers.
Oh, wow.
No, it was just MREs. But that's, I was sort of like, this is reminiscent to the beginning of the war. Yeah. Like, okay, we're back,
Had you had exposure already in any previous deployments to ISIS?
No.
So this is your first time with that?
Yeah. We had not gone against ISIS. It was all Taliban, Al-Qaeda. So we show up there, and it was literally, dude, it was like figure it out. So we were given the partner force, and they're like, hey, you guys are going to, we were doing a AAA mission, which is advised, assist, and accompany, right? So we were really there just to advise them and assist them with air assets. And then if need be, we accompany them up to like help them out to get the job done. But that's like last resort, right? The rule was we were not allowed 800 meters. We had to be 800 meters back from the front line. We could not like go up to the fighting. So
what the hell are you there for?
To air assets. So what we would do is we would go out. This is like the first couple of weeks, and this is when I talk about figuring it out. Dude, the first day that we started clearing was probably one of the gnarliest like things I'd seen. We show up. There must have been miles of just Iraqi Humvees down stretching the line, and they were like pretty much came over comms and was like, and go. And they just started pushing into the city, and they're just blowing up, like IEDs going off. Like you're just watching mayhem happen. It was like a thing out of Braveheart. You're just like, what the fuck? So our job is we sit back, we fly a Puma or a drone, we look for targets with the Puma or drone, and then we had mortars, and we would either hit the target with mortars or call in airstrikes, right? The problem with that was the Iraqis were getting their shit pushed in, and the leadership of the Iraqis were like, hey, you need to come up there with us. And we had to, well, we're not allowed.
Oh, shit.
And then they were like, well, you guys are fucking cowards. And so you're not gaining the respect of the partner force that you're working with. So I played this game. Me and my OIC played this game for about, I'd say, a couple weeks. And we're like, dude, this doesn't make any sense, because also what would happen is we were sitting back 800 meters, and ISIS had drones. So the ISIS,
that's nice.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was like a really 360 environment. You had to not look for IEDs, VBIDs. Now you had to look up in the air. So ISIS would fly over drones, and as soon as that would happen, we were taking mortars, because what they would do is just get your location, boom, and start hitting you with mortars. And so we were just getting smacked with mortars each time we went out, and they were coming close. And so we would call back and be like, hey, we want to push forward because we're taking fire. And they're like, nope, just return to base. So we just kept doing that. And I was like, dude, we're not making any ground. Like, this isn't doing anything. So myself and the OIC were like, listen, we're going to go on the offensive here. Like, we're an offensive unit. This is not, we can't just sit back here and do nothing.
Yeah.
And so we started going out. We'd set up our position where we were supposed to, 800 meters or wherever we chose. But then I would take an element up closer to at first I would go recce a spot with a couple guys.
You go what a spot?
Recce, recon.
Oh, got it.
Recon a spot, find some high ground. And that was, had a good advantageous position. And then I would come back and grab, 4 or 5 guys, go up there with javelins, sniper rifles, A-dubs, all the organic weapons that we had at our disposal. And we started having an effect, because then we were able to engage ISIS, from an area that we could see them, and the partner force started moving. They started clearing because of that, because we were going up there, not only helping them out in that way, but we were showing them like, hey, dude, we're in this with you.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Like, this makes all the sense in the world, obviously. I see why you did it. But was there, because you're kind of entering that gray area of technically not doing the 800 meters back thing, is this where there started to be like guys in the platoon like, we're not supposed to be doing this shit?
Yeah, I think, I think from the get-go, when we showed up, like I talked about, we only had about 2 or 3 days, and then it was like, go. And like I said, it was definitely a fucking chaotic environment, dude. Like, we had our partner force. There was also probably 3 other partner force elements out there that belonged to another platoon or, an ODA platoon. And then there was just like regular Iraqi police that were out there clearing. So you had all these elements that you had to keep track of. We use these ATACs. So we would look on our phones, and a lot of the partner force would have these beacons on them, so you could tell where they were on the battle space. But then the problem was they would get killed, then ISIS would have the beacons. And so you were like, well, we don't know if this is ISIS or what. So it was just one of those, like, figuring it out it was definitely drinking from a fire hose for the first couple of weeks of like, all right. But once we got into a groove and we knew what we were doing, we started pushing forward. And yeah, there was some pushback. Well, first things first is we were going out every day. And like I said, we were living in shitty living conditions.
Oh, yeah.
But what I did was, like I described before, how we would just take these mortars every day. I brought the whole platoon out probably for the first 4 or 5 days. And then I realized, I'm like, this is stupid. There's too many. We have too much of a footprint out here. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to split the platoon in half. Half the platoon went back to, remember I talked about that mansion?
Yes.
In Erbil.
Yes.
I sent half the platoon back to Erbil and was like, hey, you guys are going to go back, rest and refit for a week. Then you will come change out with the other half of the platoon. And then they will get to go rest and refit for a week. Myself, the OIC, and I think 2 other individuals, we stayed out there the whole time. So that right there, I think, caused some issues, unbeknownst to me at the time. I thought I was like doing them a favor, or just being like, hey, this just makes sense. But what happens is these guys would go back and rest and refit, and they'd bitch about whatever, because there was no one there to control the bitching. It was just like I call them hate circles, right? They're just like, oh, they start complaining and they all get, riled up.
Did you see this in your previous years in other platoons? Did you ever see stuff like that happen?
Yeah, dude, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If guys aren't bitching, then they're plotting, right? So it's fine. It's like, if they're complaining, great. You only allow it to get to a certain point, and then you have to squash it and be like, you shut the fuck up. Like, this is the job.
Yeah.
So, I've seen before, and I was part of it. We called it the E5 Mafia. You're in the E5 Mafia. You think you know it all, and you're like complaining about the leadership and blah blah blah. And it's just natural. It happens, right? But the thing is, it never gets like unprofessional. It doesn't. It stays within the E5 Mafia, and that's it. It doesn't like go outside the platoon or even to the leadership.
Yeah.
So this is sort of like what was going on.
But by the way, real quick, like when I look at your story after the fact, as you're going to go through this and drop the details, once I really learned what actually happened, which was, I think the first one I saw was Sean Ryan's podcast on that, which was excellent. I was like, holy shit, you can't just believe what you hear on TV. But,
yeah.
There were so many little things, like teeny tiny things, and you'll end up describing some of them where it's like, in hindsight, nothing was wrong there. But you could see how that then looks if you just take that and lift that and say, oh, but he did this.
Yeah.
Like there's these little moments where I'm just thinking to myself as a human, and I'm like, I would never think anything of that. And then you see it in some different, like, lit up context. Like if you're in the bar and you see a lot of ugly girls, but like you go like this and one of them looks hotter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's almost like, or looks uglier once you see it because she looked hot because all the other ones were ugly. Like it's almost like that with your story.
It's a bunch of tiny little red flags that really I didn't think were that big of a deal. And like I've said this in other podcasts, dude, I give them the benefit of the doubt as far as they had never been to combat, and then they get thrown into this.
Yeah.
And it was a very chaotic and kinetic deployment. But the amount of the amount of atrocities that were witnessed on that deployment, I had never seen. And I'd seen my fair share, and ISIS was like on another level.
What kinds of things did you see?
Well, just to like give you, so even the partner force. So this wasn't an American-led war, right? We were there doing advising, assisting, and accompanying. So the Iraqis were like the lead. We lived with them, and so where we live in this house was attached to another room that the Iraqis had, and that was their torture chamber. So we went to bed every night listening to ISIS just like get raped, tortured, killed. I mean, it was like normal. It was like, okay, which was kind of weird, but nobody, it was sort of like, oh, this is happening, but whatever.
It's not our jurisdiction.
Nobody, it was like, what are we going to report, And then on the flip side of that is as we're, clearing through Mosul, I mean, it wasn't uncommon. Like when I talked about going to recon areas. Like you have to climb over mounds of dead bodies to get into buildings. They would pile up women and kids, and then they would,
pile up women and kids.
Yeah, dead bodies to block off entrances, and then we at one point we had pulled into it was like downtown near the museum in Mosul, but there was a park, and there was kids' heads on spikes.
Kids,
yeah, decapitated kids' heads on spikes, and then they would a couple times they'd probably be like 300 or 400 meters away from us and with a field in front of us. And then they would send out a group of like 15 women and kids, some men, sprinting towards us and then mow them down. And like they were trying to get us to come out of our position to go help, which it worked. The Iraqis, the partner force, would go out there and try and help them, and they would get smoked.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.